Hello friends, Tom Downey here for the Minnesota Vikings preseason profile. We'll start things off with their key additions, and there was one big one in quarterback Kirk Cousins, who comes over on what was then a record-setting deal for NFL quarterbacks. Was a massive addition for Minnesota, a team that went 13-3 and then upgraded at the quarterback spot. They also brought in Trevor Siemian to be their backup quarterback. Sheldon Richardson comes over on a one-year deal to provide some more talent on an already loaded defense. Overall, free agency, Minnesota was a big winner. They also added Mike Hughes and Brian O'Neill early in the NFL draft, even though I didn't love their draft per se. In terms of their losses, yeah, they lost Bradford and Keenum, two, as of right now, starting quarterbacks in the NFL, but Cousins is an upgrade there. They did lose Joe Berger. That was a big loss up front. There is now a question mark on the right side of that offensive line. Overall, though, this is a really good offseason for Minnesota. I didn't love their draft class. I'm not a huge Mike Hughes fan. I'm not the biggest Brian O'Neill guy. I have flashes of TJ Clemmings in my head. I think he's going to need some time to get used to playing at the NFL level. He's still very raw. So the not-so-great draft class stops it from being an A for me, but it's still an offseason grade of a B+. And overall, Minnesota had one of the best offseasons in the entire NFL. We'll move on to the preseason, and obviously 4 games for Minnesota this year. They go to at Denver in week 1, and then they got the Jags, Seahawks, and the Tennessee Titans. We'll zoom in on that Seahawks game. It's a quality matchup overall. And of course, it's the week 3 preseason matchup. It's the dress rehearsal. It's the one to watch the most. Namely, how does Kirk Cousins fare with his new look receiving corps, at least for him? It's very much the same group for Minnesota, but it's a bunch of new players and new players to gain chemistry with for Cousins. On the defensive side of the ball, well, this should still be among the NFL's best defense. Is it still the best defense, though? When it comes to training camp, 3 main storylines I'm watching. First up, kind of like we just mentioned, how does Cousins fit in this year? Now, there are massive expectations for Kirk in Minnesota coming over from the Washington Redskins. It's now a different ball game for Kirk Cousins. The reality is, Minnesota went 13-3 last year. If Cousins doesn't lead Minnesota to a Super Bowl title, or at least a Super Bowl berth, it's kind of going to be viewed as a disappointing year because Minnesota was already so good, and now they have to take that next step forward with an upgrade at the quarterback spot. Minnesota has more talent for Cousins, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Rudolph, Dalvin Cook, than Washington does. Cousins should be even better in Minnesota. The one potential flaw, at least in my eyes, for Minnesota on offense is the right side of the offensive line. Now, overall, this is a good unit. Riley, Nick, and Pat on that left side from left tackle to center. That's a pretty good trio with some young talent there as well. But it's the right side that is the question mark. Joe Berger is out. Mike Remmers is going to be one starter. The question is it at right tackle or is it at right guard? Now, he'll compete with Izdora, Tom Compton for guard, or maybe Rashad Hill and or Brian O'Neill emerge as a right tackle, kicking Remmers to the inside. Either way, that is one of the main training camp battles to watch for in Minnesota, perhaps alongside the cornerback depth chart as well. As to defense, look, this should once again be one of the best, if not the outright best, defenses in the entire NFL. No team allowed fewer points per game last year than Minnesota, and it was by a full point less than Jacksonville. So the expectations remain high for Minnesota. Maybe they come back down to earth just a little bit, but this Minnesota defense should be incredible, and it should benefit the Minnesota offense by having such a strong defense next year. So folks, let me know if you think the Vikings will be the NFL's #1 defense again. Give me a 1 for a yes and a 2 for a no. I think they're right alongside there with Jacksonville, and after last season, I'm going to put in a 1 for you guys. On to their 2018 schedule, a bit of a rough start to the year. They go play the Niners in week 1. Maybe they can pump the brakes on that San Francisco hype train. Then it's on the road to Green Bay in week 2, then an easier game week 3 against the Bills, but a short week as they go to LA to play the Rams in week 4, and then another back-to-back tough road game, Philadelphia. So first 5 games, 4 pretty tough ones for Minnesota. Then a little bit of a lull with Arizona and the Jets, the Saints, and what should be a great Sunday night football game in week 8. And then to the back half of the schedule. Week 9 against Detroit, then comes the bye, then comes the Chicago Bears and Green Bay as they play 3 NFC North teams in a row. Then another little mini tough stretch there. The Patriots go to in week 13 on the road against Seattle on Monday Night Football. We'll see just how good Seattle actually is at that point of the year. Then it's the Dolphins, Lions, and Bears. Now overall, Relatively speaking, in the NFC, I think it's a pretty favorable schedule for Minnesota. Their Super Bowl odds are also reflected in that. Plus 1,100 is actually one of the best odds in the entire NFL. I think they'll finish first in the NFC North this year. I love this Minnesota team. Maybe they only win 12 games or 11. I think it's probably more like 12 or 13, though. I think Minnesota is in position to be not just the NFC North favorite, but a potential Super Bowl favorite this year, and that's what the odds certainly reflect. So, folks, let us know where you think the Vikings will finish in the NFC North this year. I've got them first. I'm sure Vikings fans will agree, but if you're a Packers fan, maybe you feel just a little bit differently. Folks, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/chatsportstv for more Vikings and NFL coverage throughout the offseason.